Well, hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodling. And today I delve into the world of, I suppose, upper middle class crime in the US with the crime drama The Bling Ring. This was definitely a film that I was aware of, primarily because of Emma Watson's involvement, and of course this being the major transition film for her, in the same way that a film like Horns was the transition film for Daniel Radcliffe. You know, this was her going, oh, I'm no longer the Hermione Granger, the Harry Potter girl. I am now I want to be taken as something different. And of course, previous to that, you'd had The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but this is definitely her step into, I want to be taken as a serious, as a versatile Hollywood actress. So I was aware of it around the time of when it came out for that reason. But I let it pass me by. It wasn't particularly something that grabbed me. And I don't know, looking back now, there is something there that's quite interesting as a sort of capsule of that time period. I mean, recently, quite unintentionally, I've been covering a lot of Youthful Rebellion films, which does give me an idea for what I would cap off this loose theme with. But very much about teenage rebellion, antisocial, anti-establishment, youthful pushback against whatever idea, and what I find interesting about my subconscious choice of viewings is the fact that it's not conventional. It's not, it's films like Young Guns and Akira and films that are just a little bit stranger. They're not sort of traditional rebellion films, or even Society, which you could throw in there with them. And The Bling Ring is a very different kind of rebellion film, because Sofia Coppola has this very strange device where, and this is the thing that I've sort of been grappling with since I've finished the film and what I've been chewing over the last couple of hours, is she creates this almost disassociation, and you get that sense with the core group that they themselves are disaffected youths who burglarize, not because they need to, not because to sort of fuel any kind of addiction, or even they don't even really do it for like any narcoleptic sort of satisfaction. Maybe a little, but not primarily. It's more, I suppose, a combination of things. One is that sense of, like I say, the disassociated, disaffected sense of, oh, nothing matters. We are the children of fairly wealthy people. We're not, we're rebellious, and we want to cause some kind of effect. And at the same time, there's also this strange violation aspect of it. The idea that they don't see a line between themselves and the celebrities whose houses they're breaking into. And again, like I say, that sense of disaffected, like, oh, it doesn't matter because they're wealthy, successful celebrities. They don't even really factor that in or discuss the sort of ethics of it. They just act on impulse. They just think that they can, because these people are celebrities and are rich, and because they are sort of are in the same world, and of course they aspire to them, admire them, they feel almost an intrusive sense of possession and as I say, violation to the celebrities, as if, because celebrities, and this is a conversation that has of course gone forward to films like I've covered recently, like Cam and Spree, where if you put yourself into the world, you become property of the general public. That is sort of the nature of modern celebrity. And this takes it that step further. The idea that, that these kids don't just break into the houses just because they want the stuff. They feel, because that this person is a celebrity, that they don't. It's almost like they don't, not quite deserve, but they have no right to to privacy, you might say, even though, of course, a different kind of privacy, because it's sort of breaking into their empty homes and going through their stuff and taking what they want. But as I say, Sofia Coppola does have this strange habit, and I noticed it back when I watched Lost in Translation, that she creates almost a distance with the audience. Obviously, I've mentioned how the primary principle of cinema is a machine for empathy, and that's something I've taken from Mark Kermode. That's his saying. And I definitely am in that same school. The idea is we're supposed to try and either empathise with, or at least get an understanding of the mental state and emotions of people who we wouldn't have an opportunity to otherwise. And so when it comes to crime dramas, traditionally it's to either sort of glamorise the sort of how, the desire for wealth and power, or be a demonstration of poverty and necessity. In this case, it doesn't really do either. This, as I say, Sofia Coppola just creates this, as they are disassociated from the people whose houses they're breaking into, we're disassociated from them. There are even moments in this film where we're watching them through the security footage of whoever's house it is, and there's this strange numbness to the whole thing. As I say, with Lost in Translation, it's a similar thing, where it's not that Sofia Coppola doesn't want us to empathise with our characters, she just doesn't do the work for us that in the way that other filmmakers would. She doesn't sort of externalise people's mental and emotional state. You have to almost extrapolate, from quiet moments, from the way they interact with each other, from the way that they present themselves for publicly, sort of the public face to the private face, and you sort of have to extrapolate your own understanding of what someone is feeling, almost from the gap, the gap between all of these sort of ways of self-presentation. But with Lost in Translation, of course, you have long stretches of quiet moments to do that in, where you are sort of looking at someone who the isolation and sort of the desperation of characters. Whereas in this case, this is more like the noise factor, and feeds into that sense of these characters kind of just, they're constantly sort of bouncing off each other, geeing each other up to do this, and there is that further sense that, of course, teenage rebellion is almost a fundamental part of growing up. And of course, different teenagers push different boundaries depending on the need to rebel. And the nature of these characters and the way that they're presented is that because they're wealthy, and because they've already rebelled a bit because they're sent to this sort of, it's not quite a reform school, but it's a school for people who, have already been kicked out of schools, but it's a wealthy one. It's a Californian sort of almost Los Angeles level of like, this is where the children of rich parents go, the bad children of rich parents go. And they're already doing things like going to clubs, doing drugs, drinking, partying, having sex, or at least it's implied they're having, And so it's almost, and they seem to have no one checks them for that. No one seems to police them in any way. All of those things seem to be just available to them with no limitation. And of course it demonstrates a little of that sort of what we imagine to be the wealthy parent, sort of new money, wealthy parent, upper middle class, Los Angeles style life, where, the parents sort of have their ideas of how they want to rear the kids, but they don't seem to connect with them. They seem to be sort of more self-involved and sort of parenting at a distance rather than actually engaging with their kids. Hence they, and that's a whole sort of facade aspect where even their kids seem to have a face that they put on for their parents, which is not the way they act when they are in the club or when they're committing these crimes. And so the point is, it's the idea that they, if there's no one checking them for them acting out, if they're able to drink and do drugs and party as much as they want, the next level is, okay, what can they do that will finally get them the attention that they need? and of course that's sort of them pushing the final boundary, I suppose, where they're actually going into doing criminal acts. And of course, so there is that need for attention. There's also that, as I say, there's that sense of, I'm almost tempted to say with certain characters it's almost sociopathic. The character Rebecca, particularly, and Nika, both have these sort of almost sociopathic levels of like not caring and sort of adapting to their circumstances. The final scene, which by saying it doesn't really spoil the film, but is Nika basically being, presenting a face to the public that is almost like she's sort of turned a switch, and there's something quite cold and calculating about it. And and so, like I say, you have the intrusiveness, you have the lack of discipline, the need for attention, and the admiration. The fact that all these people whose houses they're breaking into, like Paris Hilton, like Lindsay Lohan, like Orlando Bloom, these are people that they admire and they want to be like, and they want the fame of, and so therefore they feel that they're entitled to accessing these people's lives, even in this sort of perverse way. The fact that it's based on a real article is quite interesting. The name of the article is something like the intruders who wore Louis Vuitton or something like that. The Vanity Fair article. That's it. The suspects wore. Thank you, producer wife Helen. The suspects wore Louis Vuittons. So it's obviously, as well as being this sort of satire, and of course, Coppola enhances the narrative, but the fact that it's based on a real life account gives this extra level of concern, and the idea of the generation that we're sort of seeding, and nearly a decade on, of course, we're seeing that grow into the Instagram and the Only Connect, and the sort of the nature, and as I talked about with Cam, that sense of public and private sort of merging, and people or with Spree particularly, the idea that someone doesn't know how to doesn't seem to sacrifice their own sense of personal identity to become something else. And this is definitely a sort of forebear of that. As I said, this is the big Emma Watson stepping out film. I'm not the child actor anymore. I'm going. The strange thing about it is the fact that she actually, being in the ensemble, the fact that she has a pretty decent American accent, means it actually weirdly, it kind of has the opposite effect. It means makes her not stand out. And she kind of disappears into the narrative to such a degree that, the fact that it's an Emma Watson film is kind of strange. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I forget that this is her. She hasn't gotten to the point where she's doing films like Noah, or later on with Beauty and the Beast, where she becomes Hollywood, sort of big Hollywood Emma Watson. She's still, I suppose, kind of early Hollywood Emma Watson, and still doing these films like this and Perks of Being a Wallflower. And of course, this is that strange era where you had actresses like Emma Watson, like Vanessa Hudgens, and the other one from Spring Breakers. The idea of these sort of, teen idols who have this sort of childlike, or at least youthful sense of innocence to them, sort of going, okay, they're gonna... Selena Gomez, that's who I was thinking of, Vanessa Hudgens, Selena Gomez from Spring Breakers, who are going, okay, we're gonna act out and we're gonna show these darker, more, wild sides to us. Now in Spring Breakers, Vanessa Hudgens and Selena Gomez really push out on that, but Emma Watson seems to do it in a slightly less risque way, I suppose. There is something of that there, but it's only 60-70% of that. And maybe to her credit then, of course, that means that when she does go on to more sort of serious, mature roles, or this is not a mature role, but if you know what I mean, as in where she's playing adults rather than sort of teenagers, she transitions to that fairly well. It's I did enjoy it, and I was intrigued by it, and the ideas were quite the fact that they were, the ideas on the screen were interesting. It's just, as I say, I think I don't necessarily click with Sofia Coppola quite in the way that I want to. I think I recognise her style and I acknowledge and appreciate it. I haven't clicked with it, and again, that might require me to go further into her filmography and find that film that really makes me go, that's the one. But I am glad I saw this. I am, this is one of the, like I said, one of those ones that I sort of waved on at the time, and it is a really interesting perspective. It is genuinely the sort of film that you kind of chew on and go, wow, this as a satire, this really does sort of bring into the forefront questions that we are currently dealing with, as I've said. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment below and share the video, because this will help me in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notifications of when new videos are uploaded. Check out my back catalogue of over 200 videos, and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about TV shows and films, and share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.